that the greatest boxer of all times, Muhammad Ali, died because of Parkinsonism. You see, he was a heavyweight champion for 10 years, and you very well know the fact that boxing, especially the professional boxing, where they're going to box without protective headgear, the blows to the side of the head can really be nasty, and that could result in development of microscopic bleeds in the basal ganglia, which will accumulate over time and can contribute to features of Parkinsonism. Hi guys, this is Dr. Marwa. Good to see you guys back. I shall be today talking about approach to a patient of Parkinson's disease. I have already introduced myself to the patient, taken the consent for a detailed neurological examination and taken care of the hand hygiene component already. We shall now be talking about the detailed examination of the patient. There are 4 components that I need to demonstrate: bradykinesia, tremors, rigidity, gait and balance issues, and I'm going to break them down one by one. You will notice that observation obviously plays a very key role in evaluating a patient of Parkinson's disease. Right from the time the patient walks into your consultation, when you're taking a detailed history, you will definitely notice the resting tremor. But lots of time the patient might try to conceal this resting tremor by maybe keeping both their hands in their pockets, or maybe keeping them between their legs or keeping them below their thighs, because of which the resting tremor initially can be missed. But you need to observe the blink rate of the patient, you need to observe the facial expressions of the patient, and I would say that from the diagnostic perspective, it is rigidity which is usually the neglected component of the disease, and I usually find a lot of physicians having difficulty in evaluating the rigidity component, because when I'm going to tell my patient to relax, relaxation is something that is definitely not possible routinely by you just saying to a patient to relax. So I'm going to teach you an activation maneuver which will be very important for identification of the rigidity component. And since I've already explained some parts of the examination to the patient, you will notice that he will be able to cooperate with me relatively better. You see, the first and the foremost thing is, when I asked my patient to actually relax, he may not be able to. So what I'm doing at the moment is, I can ask the patient to let his arm fall on my hand. I can feel the weight of the arm of this patient on my hand at the moment, and now I can definitely notice a bit of, or I would say a lot of suppleness at this moment, or a lot of flexibility in the wrist joint of the patient at the moment. Now let's just activate the activation maneuver. So I'm just going to request him, अपने दूसरे हाथ से ना इसको इस तरीके से करिए. हाँ, जितना तेजी से कर सकते हैं उतना तेजी से करिए. You will notice that the moment this activation maneuver, it might take few seconds, but now you will notice that when I'm trying to elicit the flexibility component of the wrist joint per se, there's definitely a catch present, and I'm having to apply relatively more force. Good. Thank you. There's definitely a catch present, and you will notice the moment he has stopped this activation maneuver, then the rigidity component has definitely become relatively lesser. I can obviously elicit this in the elbow joint of the patient as well, or for that matter of fact, I can relax. I can also elicit the same thing in the legs of the patient as well. So let me do this activity. What I'm gonna simply do is, I am gonna ensure that the weight of the leg of the patient or the weight of the thigh of the patient is falling on my hand. And at the moment, if I am gonna check out for, I would say, the flexibility component or the suppleness present at the ankle joint, yes, definitely it's pretty supple. Let's just activate the activation maneuver once again. अपने हाथ से ना दोबारा से करिए. As fast, जितनी तेजी से कर सकते हो उतनी तेजी से करिए, जोर से नहीं. हाँ, ठीक है, fine. And now you will notice that definitely, I mean, if I am having to apply, you can see that I'm having to apply force to actually overcome the resistance. Please appreciate the rigidity per se is different from spasticity. Good, thanks. Rigidity per se, guys, is different from spasticity, because you guys are gonna see a lot of patients of stroke. Please remember, rigidity per se is not velocity dependent, neither it is direction dependent. What I mean by the fact not I would say velocity dependent is that whether you're gonna fast, whether you're gonna go slow, you will overcome or you will feel the same amount of resistance. And what I mean by the word not dependent on the direction per se is whether you will be doing flexion, whether you will be doing extension, you are gonna get the same amount of resistance that would be present. And on this, usually I get a very common query. Now the very common query, guys, that I'll be getting is, what is cogwheel rigidity? I want you to appreciate that cogwheel rigidity would be combination of two things, that is rigidity plus tremors. I repeat the fact once again. If you are having tremors with rigidity, we call it cogwheel rigidity. Otherwise, plain rigidity per se is sufficient for diagnosis of the disease. The next component of the disease that I want you to understand is the bradykinesia component. You will notice in day-to-day activities, patient will be having difficulty in maybe putting up buttons in a shirt, but I will here demonstrate the bradykinesia component both in the upper limb as well as the lower limb. And let's get started with the very first maneuver that I'll ask the patient, but you will need to be very, very clear in your instructions, because when you are going to ask your patient to do any activity like tapping the thumb and the index finger, lots of time patient may not be able to follow your instructions. As a result of it, he might either do these activities relatively slower and faster, or they might try to do it really wide and slow. I said big and fast is the movement that is required. And most importantly, you also need to follow this movement over time. That do these movements become slower with time? Do they become smaller in time? So there are two things I want you to understand when you are doing this patient to make these repetitions of the same movement. Ideally, you should be doing 10 repetitions of every movement. You need to see whether the movement is becoming slower with time or smaller with time. So let's do this, and I've already sensitized the patient to the maneuvers that I'm going to do. सबसे पहले देखिए, अपने अंगूठे और फिंगर से ना ऐसे टैपिंग करिएगा, इस हाथ से कोशिश करिएगा, ठीक है, जितना तेज कर सकते हैं उतना तेज करने की कोशिश करिएगा. So you will notice as a background, there's definitely a reduction. I would say amplitude wise. Good. Thanks. There's definitely a reduction in the amplitude of the movement that the patient is able to appreciate or is able to do. And even with the contralateral hand, you will notice lots of time. In fact, at the moment you see the resting tremor is absent. Please appreciate resting tremor may not be present all the time. The point is, when you point out to the patient, that is when the patient might become anxious and the resting tremor would come. And lots of time when the patient is relaxed, the resting tremor might be very subtle, maybe neglected. And if he's sitting with his arms crossed, anyway, you may not be able to appreciate it. Now, lots of patients might be having osteoarthritis involving the DIP. As a result of this, pinching the thumb and the index finger may not be very comfortable for the patient. So let me try another maneuver here, that is fist open and close. अपने हाथ को ऐसे देखिए मेरी तरफ, ये जैसे अपने हाथ को ऐसे खोल के बंद करना है. पकड़िए, करिए, मुट्ठी बनाइए, मुट्ठी बनाने की कोशिश करिए. खोलिए. Yes. Try to outstretch. बाजू थोड़ा सीधा करिए. Very good. So you will notice, as compared to me, who I can decrease the speed, there's a substantial reduction in the capability of the patient to do this activity. And good, thanks. And I want you to appreciate, guys, that Parkinson's disease is an asymmetric disease. I mean, you might be having manifestations more in one side of the body as compared to the other side. So lots of time the tremors might be actually present in one hand, spread to the same side leg, then move on to the contralateral leg. So please do not appreciate that you're going to get symmetrical findings in the disease. Lots of time it's going to be asymmetrical. Now I'm going to demonstrate the same thing in a different way in the lower limbs of the patient also for the bradykinesia component. आपको अपने जो टोज हैं उनको इस तरीके से, जैसे मैं अपने पैर में कर रहा हूं, ठीक है, उसको ऐसे टैप करने की कोशिश करिएगा. करेंगे? करिए, तेज करने की कोशिश करिए. Yes. So what you are noticing again is a limitation or in the range of movement. कोई नहीं. Good. दूसरे पैर से करने की कोशिश करिए. Try to do it. Yes. So ideally, guys, what I'm saying is at least 10 repetitions of the same movement should be done, and you can definitely notice a marked reduction. Yeah, the patient has been started on medication. The results of the medication might take some time to come. So at the moment, these movements will be relatively slow. Let's try to do one more thing. Instead of asking the patient to do a toe tapping, I will be asking the patient, rather now on my foot, I will be asking the patient to do an entire tap. ऐसे पूरा करने की कोशिश करिए जितना कर सकते हैं. Yes. थोड़ा जोर से लगाइए. Yes. So I would obviously do it both the sides, 10 sets every time, but you can notice. Thanks. बस धन्यवाद. You can again notice there's a marked reduction. So guys, the basic message is for the upper limb, what you can do definitely is, one, you can do this finger thumb tapping. You can do fist open and close. You can also do pronation, supination, which I deliberately did not do to minimize the distress on the patient. But the point is, for bradykinesia, 3 things in the upper limbs: tapping the thumb and the index finger, fist open close, especially for the arthritis aspects present in the hand. Then apart from this, you can do pronation, supination. For the lower limbs, you can be doing a toe tapping as well as a heel tapping, and you would be able to demonstrate the bradykinesia component. I highlight once again, bradykinesia is the most important component of the disease per se that must be present, and along with this, some other features should be present. The tremor component of the disease can be appreciated even on observation, but what I'm going to do here is check out the postural component of the tremor, whether it is present or not, and for that I'll be doing the routine finger nose test. So आप अपने हाथ को मेरी इधर उंगली से टच करिए, उंगली से टच करिए और उसके बाद में अपने नाक से टच करिए. यस, दोबारा से करिए, दोबारा से करिए, दोबारा से करिए. So I will again be doing make the patient do 10 sets of this activity. He's doing it relatively slower. I'll try to ask him to do it relatively faster. थोड़ा और तेज कोशिश करिए जरा, थोड़ा तेज कोशिश करिए. Okay, so as you can see, in spite of my instructions, he's able to do it, but is relatively slower. अब दूसरे हाथ से करिएगा, दूसरे हाथ से करिए. गुड गुड गुड. दूसरे हाथ से हाँ नाक को टच करिए. हाँ करिए 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 करिए. गुड गुड गुड. दोबारा से करिए. Now what I want to tell you guys is that he's able to do this activity, and at the moment I'm keeping my finger stationary, no, I'm not moving my finger. Now if I appreciate or if I want to evaluate cerebellar disease in a patient, then I'll be moving my finger in space as well. So let's try this activity. I'm just going to move my finger up. You can see I have to move it a little within his range, but the point is he's still able to do this activity. Now I'm going to change the position of my finger. करते रहिए, इधर लेके आइए. Yes, yes. So what you can see at the moment is that as such finger nose test is able to do the coordination, so that can definitely rule out the possibility of ataxia, which is definitely thanks. You can definitely notice is that the ataxia component is definitely not present in Parkinson disease per se. I want to highlight two aspects. Do not be under impression the resting tremors are going to be present always on rest. There's definitely a postural component, and lots of time on anxiety the tremors might actually increase, and once the person is relatively more comfortable, the tremors might even reduce as well. I shall now be explaining to you regarding the pull test that we can do in the patient, and I find a lot of people having a lot of misconceptions about it. You see, the basic point is when I'm gonna do this on a normal person, all I'm gonna do is I can just pull the person gently backwards, and in a normal individual I can say the fact that if I pull somebody with a lot of force, that person will definitely be able to step backwards maybe 2 or 3 steps and would be able to catch his balance. But in Parkinson disease patient, you have to be very careful about the fact that when you're going to do this test in a person, a normal person can definitely maintain his balance. In Parkinson disease patient, you need to ensure that you're standing near a wall, and I am deliberately here having a wall on my back because I don't want my patient to actually fall on me and I lose my balance and fall backwards. So that's an important thing whenever you try to do this maneuver to evaluate the gait and especially the balance issues in a person. It is of imperative, it's implied that you should always be having a support in the form of a wall behind your back. Now in a normal individual, if I pull really hard, you can see that a normal person can definitely maintain his balance. I can repeat the same thing once again. I am just gonna pull him slightly backwards and he can maintain his balance. But in Parkinson disease, there can definitely be gait issues. Let us do the pull test in the patient as well. I have already informed the patient what maneuver I'll be doing, and I will be there to catch him in case of any issues. Now I'm just gonna give a gentle tug, and you can notice that the patient definitely almost had to, I had to break the fall of the patient. That's the important thing that I want you to remember with Parkinson disease, especially when you're doing this test. I don't want you to lose your balance and hit into the wall. To demonstrate the great abnormalities in the patient, I would suggest that you do not ask the patient to get up from the chair just like normal, or rather ask the patient to cross his arms and then try to get up from the chair. Let us also see the activity that he is able to do. अपने जो दोनों हाथ हैं वो ऐसे रख लीजिए इस तरीके से. आप चेयर से उठने की कोशिश करिए. चेयर से उठिए. Good. Always keep your back without or hand behind the back of the patient, because lots of time they may not be able to maintain the balance and might actually fall on the chair. I don't want the patient to fall backwards, slam his head against the wall, because that's again an important aspect. So now we are gonna relax. Good. Let's थोड़ा चलते हैं, right? ठीक है. Let's do this. चलिए. Very good. So what I want you to understand at this point of time is that the length of the stride of the foot is definitely hampered in this particular case. It is lesser, and even if you notice the gait of the patient, you can definitely notice a very characteristic shuffling gait present. So this would be one of the very classical manifestations that you get in advanced stages of Parkinson disease. Towards the end of this discussion, I want to tell you that the greatest boxer of all times, Muhammad Ali, died because of Parkinsonism. You see, he was a heavyweight champion for 10 years, and you very well know the fact that boxing, especially the professional boxing, where they're going to box without protective headgear, the blows to the side of the head can really be nasty, and that could result in development of microscopic bleeds in the basal ganglia, which will accumulate over time and can contribute to features of Parkinsonism. Muhammad Ali died in 2018 due to pneumonia, and most patients with neurological illnesses tend to become extremely debilitated. I also want to point out that mixed martial arts, right, that's the UFC championship, you will be seeing guys hitting the other guy with the knuckles. I mean, it's a bare fist fight that can really turn nasty. So as far as body contact sports are concerned, all these athletes are superstars as of now. All that blood and gore that we see on the screen will obviously make us feel wow when they go about a fight or when we have a knockout punch delivered by somebody. But what I want to highlight as a doctor here is that body contact sport is something that ideally should be banned, because blood and injuries to the brain is not something which is to be enjoyed. My message might seem a little controversial, but I just want to highlight that for pleasure of one, other person should not suffer. That is what happened with Muhammad Ali as well. And well, if you like this discussion, please like and subscribe the channel, and do comment in the box below regarding any more future topics that you would like me to make educational videos upon. Thank you so much for your hearing and patience.